Maritime sports, we breaking the heat. Sean on the mic, pulling grails from the street. Crosby, Mick, David, Bedard on the rise. Great White North, where the legends collide. Packs get cracked, it's a heat wave storm. Young guns fire, rookie cards get born. Connor on the ice, Bedard in the zone. Crosby on the boards, man, the game's full grown. East Coast pride, where the ice runs deep. Maritime grind, where the great ones sleep. Pulling hits, stacking slabs, never losing the flame. Maritime sports, remember the name.
Hello and welcome to Maritime Sports Cards. Today we're going to do a little bit of a special edition here. Normally I am ripping or breaking cards. Tonight I thought I would talk to you a little bit about grading because I know it can be a point of frustration for many people. As you can see in the background here, I have several Connor Bedard cards. 4 of them are graded 9 and 1 of them is graded 10. And when you look at them with the naked eye, it's kind of hard to tell why is 1 a 9, why is 1 a 10. I'm going to talk about some of the things that graders look for and how you can spot them. And then after that, we'll talk about how you can prepare your card to submit to a grading company. So all of these cards were graded from PSA. They are the industry-leading standard when it comes to grading. Definitely, they grade the most cards, and they tend to hold the most value. So if you have a card that's PSA graded versus some other grading company, it tends to be worth a little bit more. So if we look at, let's take this 10 here as an example. So this is a PSA 10. That's the highest grade you can get. It's a Gem Mint 10, which is, again, that's the highest you can get from PSA. And if you were to look at this nice and close, and it's probably hard to see in the camera, I don't know, can you see any things that might stand out? Probably not. Well, what about if we looked at it through a magnifying glass? This is usually what I use to take a quick look at my cards to see if there's any obvious defects. And with the camera, that's going to be a little bit tough as well. But if I hold it up to the camera lens, you can see, of course, it does magnify it quite a bit. This one does have a light on it as well, so if I click the button I can add a light to it, which gives me a little bit more clarity on what I'm looking at. And of course, when you're looking at a card before submitting to grading, it's not covered with all this plastic. So I've got a poly bag over top of the grading slab, then the card's inside of the slab, so it's making it even harder to see the fine details when you're looking at the card itself. Now, what are some things that a grader looks at in order to determine whether your card is a 9, 10, 8, whatever it may be? There are really some major categories. So the first one is the corners. And as you can see with any slab or any company that puts a card in a slab, the corner of the card is never contacting any part of the slab. So there's a cutout in the corner here. That would also be true of any of your one-touches. So here's a one touch, for example, and you can see that there's a notch in the corner. And so when you put the card in, at no point would the corner of the card ever come in contact with the slab, the plastic, or any other surface. That's to protect the corner. So when we say corners, what are we looking for? We're looking for sharp edges. So the corner should be nice and crisp and sharp. There shouldn't be any little soft edges, little dents, dings, folds, anything like that. So that's one of the first things that you want to look at when you're looking at your cards is, what do the edges look like? What do the corners look like? The next one is the edges. So the edge of the card. So all along the edge of the card here, what does it look like? Is it frayed? Are there any wrinkles, creases? Is there any sort of defects to the edge of the card? So we've talked about corners. We're looking at edges. We also want to look at the surface of the card. So the whole surface of the card. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that the surface of the card is also equally important, and they will submit their card after they've been handling it. So they've been touching the card with their hands. They've looked at the corners look good, the edges look good, and then they submit it to the grading company. It comes back, and it's not what they expected. And sometimes it's because of the surface of the card. They've got fingerprints on it, or maybe some oil from their fingers are on the card itself, and that can affect the grade. So always make sure that you wipe down your card, and I'll talk about how you can do that later, but you want to wipe down your card with a microfiber cloth, and you have to be very careful about how you do that and which types of cards you do that with. I would not wipe down a 1970s or a 1950s card with a microfiber because they don't have a gloss finish on them. You're likely to damage the card. So it really depends on what era card we're talking about. But for the modern cards that have a gloss finish on them, you can absolutely use a microfiber cloth and give it a wipe. And I will demonstrate how to do that in a little bit. as well. What else are we looking for? So we talked about the surface, we talked about the edges, the corners. We're also looking for the centering. So on this card, it's very difficult to tell what would be center because we have no reference. There's no border. There's nothing really here to look at. But if we do look at this card, and we look at this card, so this one here is a 9 on my left, and this one here is a 10. The one on the left, if you look on the edge here, you're not going to see any blue dots on the board. But on this 10, you're going to see a couple blue dots right here. So let me just see if you can zoom in a little bit. See, there's a couple blue dots from the logo that was on the boards here. On this one, there's no blue dots. Now, there is some controversy with the Connor Bedard rookie cards in terms of what is centered. Do you need to see just a little bit of the blue dots, no blue dots? I have seen PSA 10s where there are no blue dots showing. I've also seen, like this one, this PSA 10, there's a couple blue dots showing. I've also seen much more of the blue dot showing. So how much is enough to push it over the edge in terms of is it centered? For PSA, I can't answer that one on this specific card because it doesn't make sense to me. Like I said, centering is usually a little bit more obvious. Now I'm going to see if I can find another card here. Just give me one quick second. I didn't think to have a card ready for that. Here's one. Okay, so this is a reprint of a Wayne Gretzky rookie card. And this reprint, we have a little bit of a frame of reference. We have a blue border on the right, and we have a blue border on the left. Now, if there's a thinner blue border on one side than the other, then that would indicate some off-centering. So this card, I would say, is a little bit off-center to the left. So the image is pushed a little bit to the left. It should be a little bit more over this way in order for it to be centered. On the back of the card, there's really nothing here to indicate too much of an off-centering. A little bit less border on the top maybe than the bottom, but the back is a little bit harder to tell than the front. So centering of the card is really important, and there are some glaringly obvious examples, particularly with the vintage cards. Back when they used to cut them either by hand or they would use a machine that would cut them. Now they're cut with high precision machinery, and often the centering is quite good, although we have seen in recent years cards that have been produced without good centering. I mean, it can happen. So you want to look for the centering as well. So those are the key things that you're looking for. What do the corners look like? What do the edges look like? How is the centering? And what does the surface look like? And that goes for both sides of the card, the front and the back. Obviously, the front of the card is the showpiece. That's what we're looking at. To us, visually appealing front of the card is most important. But to a grader, they're looking at the entire card, the front and the back, if there's any defects at all. So when we say surface defects, it could be a mark, it could be a pinhole, it could be a small crease, a dent, oil from fingers. It could be anything on the surface of the card. So we have to look at that as well. So, like I said, before you're going to submit your card, you want to look at all of these things. So what are some tips and tricks for that? What are we looking for? And I'm going to show you some examples of that. And as I said earlier, having a really good magnifier is really important. This particular one is getting some decent magnification, but in my opinion, not strong enough to be able to see some of the things that we're going to be looking for. And that's where a microscope comes in handy. So this is a USB microscope. You can plug it into your computer, your tablet, laptop, whatever you want to plug it into, and it'll show you an image on your computer. Or in some cases, like this one, you can actually project directly onto your phone if you wanted to. I prefer using my computer because you get a much larger image to look at. So we can use something like that to get in much, much closer and be able to see some of these potential defects. So let's do that. I'm going to switch over to my desktop here. I'm going to move this over, and we're going to look at some of these PSA graded Connor Bedard cards under this microscope so that you can see what are some of the things that show up in this 9 or this 10. The 10, we shouldn't see anything or very minor issues. The 9, we're going to see a couple of small things that are going to stand out. If I had an 8 or a 7 to look at, oh, you know what? I think I do. I have one that's not yet sent to grading, but I'm confident the cards are not in the greatest shape. Let me find one of those because I know I've got a Connor Bedard that we can look at. Okay, I'm going to see if I can find that. But like I said, let's switch over. So I'm going to very quickly here move over to my laptop. I'll also show you the exact microscope that I'm using. There are plenty of them that are on the market. You don't need anything super high-end or fancy necessarily. So let's switch over here to my desktop, and this is the one that I purchased for doing this. And as you can see, I purchased this just a couple of days ago to try it out. I had another one that I was using, and I wasn't overly happy with the focus on it, so I thought I'd try another one. And at $38 Canadian, why not, right? I mean, these are some of the images you can see. I want to be also very clear, I am not sponsored by this company, by anything on Amazon. If you buy this particular one, I receive no compensation in any way whatsoever. I bought this with my own money, and I'm trying it out over the last couple of days, and I'm sharing with you what the results are and how you can use that. So let's take a look here at the software. So let me pull that up. It's a very, very basic software. There's not a lot of options here. You can take a picture. You can actually record a time shot. So it'll take shots every so many seconds that you can set in the settings. It also does some video recording if you wanted to do that as well. Right now it's pretty blurry. There's nothing under there, but let's take one of these Connor Bedard 9s and we'll put it under there. Now, like I said, I am going to still keep this in the plastic. I'm going to keep it in the slab. Obviously, I'm not cracking the slab for this. But I think you're still going to be able to see exactly what we need to look at. So this is the card. If we were to zoom in here, you can see there's the CCM on the gloves. And the one thing I don't like about this camera, the LED lights get in the way. So there's no way to turn the LED lights off. I would suggest if you're looking for a microscope of this kind, if you can find one where you can adjust or turn the lights off, I think that would be a nice feature to have, although not crucial. You can work around it. So if you get what you're looking for closer to the edge of the actual microscope like this. So now we're at the corner of the card. So let me just zoom in here. There we go. Okay, so right here, this is the corner of the card. I'm just going to focus. And we should be able to get in pretty good. And if you look, you can see there's just a little tiny bit of a soft corner here. So you can see the ink from the card is not all the way to the edge. Some of the fibers are a little bit frayed. So it's not perfect. I'm actually going to see if I can zoom in even closer. So let me just move this down a little bit. Bear with me. There we go. Even closer. So as you can see, just on this edge of this corner, there's a little bit of fraying. This is probably not enough to warrant the difference from a 10 to a 9. I'd say it would be pretty borderline. It would depend on the grader and the day that they get it and, what kind of mood they're in, because it's not an exact science. It's done by humans. At least it is today with PSA. There are some grading companies like TAG, for example, that use artificial intelligence. They use computer technology to help with exactly this. But PSA does not do that to my knowledge. I'm going to rotate it around to the other corner. So we're going to look at the corners first. Here's the other corner. Pretty crisp. I mean, this is what you're looking for in a 10. There's a little bit of fraying on the edges, but again, this is a pretty good corner. There is maybe a little bit down here, and you can see a little bit of fraying up there. Now, there are some tips and tricks on how you could maybe use some really fine sandpaper, really fine, like 2 or 4,000 kind of grit, and just give it a nice little sand on the edge. I will caution that if PSA or any of the other grading companies feel that you have altered or messed with the card in any way, they will not only not grade your card, but they may actually ban you from submitting cards in the future. So take any of the tips that I give you at face value. If you want to, sometimes just using your finger and just rub your finger slightly along the edge, you can get rid of some of the fibers or push them down. we're not trying to make the card perfect here. You're not getting out, an X-Acto knife and trying to alter the card. Don't do that. Don't damage your card. Don't risk damaging your card. This corner is more than likely a 10 in the eyes of PSA. Again, I don't work at PSA. I'm not a professional grader. I'm giving you my opinions today on what you can use to help pre-grade your card before submitting. Move over to the next corner. This one, again, not terrible. A little tiny bit, maybe right here, but probably a 10. Probably a 10. And the last corner. And this corner is the top left corner, and in my experience, the top left corner seems to be where a lot of issues arrive with the Connor Bedard rookie cards. In fact, I have about 20 or so Connor Bedard rookie cards, and any of them that have any sort of major issues that would detract from a 10 from the ones that I own tend to be in this upper right-hand corner somewhere. Now, I do have some with other areas of concern, but most of mine are in this top corner. So we have a little bit of a ding here, a little bit of a ding. That might pass. In fact, when we put the 10 under the microscope, I think you'll be surprised. You'll see some things there where you're like, wow, that's not perfect. A 10 doesn't necessarily have to be perfect. It has to be pretty close. So that's the corners. Now the edges, and when I said the top right corner of the Bedard card tends to be where the issues are, it tends to be this top edge. So if I go very slowly across this top edge, you're going to see right here, this is the top edge of the card, and you can see where the damage is. This is why this specific card did not get a 10. There's enough damage, enough of the ink from the card itself that is missing in this gray section that we see right here. This is what resulted in this card getting a 9 instead of a 10. The rest of the card, if we go along the edges, is not bad. You'll see, the odd little thing here or there. Not something that I think would have warranted dropping from a 10 to a 9. It was that one spot in the top corner that I just showed you. So that was the 9. Let's look at the 10. So now I'm going to put the PSA 10 card under the scope. So you can see there, it says 10, right? This is the card. And if we look, this is the top right corner. If we look at this, you can see that this corner is not perfect. This is the top right corner. There is some of the ink or the image is missing from right here on the front of the card. It is very minor. We are looking under some pretty high magnification right now. The microscope itself says, I can't remember what it says on it. Let's go back to what it said on the on here. 50 to 1,000 times. So we're somewhere in that range. I do have it zoomed in really, really tight right now. So I'm guessing it's probably somewhere between 8 and 1,000 times zoomed in. Pretty minor. Again, like I said before, your card doesn't have to be perfect to be a 10. It's got to be really close. This is the other corner. So this is the top left corner. Just trying to get it out of the lights there. So here's our top left corner. Looks pretty good. We go down to the bottom left corner. That looks pretty good. In fact, that's the crispest corner that we've seen so far. And then here is the last corner. Also looks quite good. And we're only looking at the front right here. We don't need to look at the entire card. I'm just giving you some examples of what it is that might warrant a difference between a 9 and a 10. If we go all along the edge of this card, I'm just going to rotate the card here. And we go along the edge. You'll see the edge is quite crisp, except right here. This is that top right-hand corner. And we can see there's a little bit of fraying or damage to the image here on this card. This one got a 10. When it was submitted, did we get lucky and get a grader that was in a good mood? I think so, because we also see a little bit of puckering along here. So you can see these lines. There's one here, one here, one here, one here. This is really common on that right edge of a Bedard card. I'm going to show you another one in just a moment where it's really glaring. So again, if we walk along this edge here, pretty good. So that's the 10. Let me see if I can find another 9 here. This is another 9, a different one that we haven't looked at yet. This is that top right-hand corner. And I believe this corner is actually not bad. So you can see this top right, and it's probably not, let me orient it this way. There, that's the top right corner. The image will be reversed for you and what you're seeing. So this is actually the right side, not the left side. I know it looks like the left side on camera here. It's reversed because of the way the microscope is. So this is that top, and if I go along the top edge, again, here's another one with some damage here. So there's some damage at the very top right corner. All along this top edge, against the top of the card we're looking at. Not terrible. This corner, pretty good looking, right? So far the card's looking pretty good. I'm just going to rotate it again, go along the edge here. It looks pretty good. Got some more fraying and chipping. So it's more like chipping, I guess, is the right term. I got a little bit of it here. No worse than what we saw in the 10, right? So there's a couple little spots here. The 10 actually had a few more spots that were a bit bigger. There's those blue dots on the boards that I was talking about. So this one's got some, pronounced blue dots. And we keep going down along that edge of the card, past the Blackhawks logo, and to that corner. Pretty sharp corner. This is the bottom of the card now. This bottom edge looking pretty good. Okay, that bottom right-hand corner looks solid. And then we're now going along the right edge of the card, back towards that top right-hand corner. And so far, so good. And this is where we're going to start to see some of that puckering on the card. It's up near that top right-hand corner. We can see it right here. There's a little bit more here. And we're back to that top right-hand corner. To me, when we look at this card compared to the 10, it's just this is the top edge that we're looking at right now. This is likely what caused this to be a 9. When we looked at the 10, there was very similar sort of a, we'll call it a defect. This is a card that I would consider cracking and sending back in to PSA and hoping for a 10. There's not really a ton that's standing out on that card. So we can use our microscope that I showed you again. If you're just joining us, we were looking at things under this Amazon microscope here. Again, I'm not sponsored or anything. I didn't have this sent to me. I don't get any money if you buy this one. In fact, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I wish the lights were adjustable. But as far as the image is concerned, it's quite crisp. It's clear. There's nothing wrong with that image. If we pull this, this is another 9 that we're going to look at here in just a second. One thing that I do like to do with this software, look at that. That got a 9. Look at that corner. This is the upper right-hand corner. That looks terrible. Let's take a picture. So if I click on this take a photo button in the upper left on the menu here, it takes a photo. Now the photo's here, and if I click on it, it's going to open my default photo viewing software, and I can zoom in on this. Look at this corner. This is terrible. This probably should have been an 8. Got lucky and it came back a 9. So, what is the rhyme or reason, or what separates an 8 from a 9 to a 10? I don't have that answer. I wish I did. I wish there was some consistency or some sort of metrics that we could show, or maybe some example photos of some corners that PSA would put out. I also have heard that PSA would launch, or maybe they have launched, grader's notes. So you can pay extra for grader's notes, and essentially it'll say, the upper right-hand corner had damage. That's why your card got a 9 or an 8 or whatever number it is. I love that. I don't think it should be an upcharge. I think that should be included in the fee that you're paying to have your card graded. But it is what it is. There are other grading companies that do include grader's notes. So that's one thing to look at. All right, so let's jump back now. I'm gonna switch over back to the camera here, and we're gonna look at some raw cards and how you would prepare it. I actually have a Connor Bedard rookie card here that I am going to prepare to send off to be graded. So you can see my process and what I do. There's nothing fancy involved here. I do not alter my cards. There are plenty of videos on YouTube about how you might prepare your cards with methods that potentially could get your card refused to be graded and potentially you banned from submitting to PSA. So I don't recommend those methods. I'll leave that to you. I am not, again, I want to state this very clearly, I'm not a professional grader. I have no affiliation with any grading company. I am not an expert in prepping cards for grading. I have sent cards off before that I thought would be higher than what they came back. Sometimes it's the grader that you get on the day. Sometimes there's things that you missed. Legitimately, it wasn't what you thought it would be. It happens. So I have a piece of acrylic here that I use for this so that I have a nice hard flat surface so that I'm not going to inadvertently dent my card, or if I'm pressing on the card on a softer surface, it might bend the card slightly. So I take just a microfiber cloth and you're just going to wipe that down, make sure there's no oils from your fingers or anything like that on it. You want it to be nice and clean as well to make sure there's nothing that got on the surface of that could scratch your card. So I wipe that down, and then just to be extra careful, I typically will put some sort of a poly bag down on top of that so that when I set my card on it, the card is on the poly bag and there's even less chance of it getting damaged with the acrylic. Once you do that, you can take your card out of whatever protection it is in. This one happens to be in a one touch, so I'm going to take this one out of its one touch and I'm going to put it down on the poly bag here. So when we take our one touch apart, you just take the top off and your card is now sitting like this. Now when you take your card out of here, you have to be very careful not to damage the edges or corners. That, of course, is key. A lot of people will actually not use their bare hands to do this. They will use some sort of nitrile glove or latex glove so that none of the oils from your fingers get on the card, but we're actually going to clean the surface of the card in just a second here. So I'm not overly concerned about that. I am not taking my fingers and smudging them all over the card. You don't want to do that either. You're just going to use the edge of the card here and you're going to put your card down on your poly bag. Okay, and then we're going to take a microfiber cloth, something like this, and I use these. So this is a type of swab that you can use for cleaning printer heads. So if you have a home printer, you can order these off of Amazon. There's probably other supply places you can get them from. And essentially, this is just very lightly dampened with some water, plain water. Some people like to use isopropyl alcohol or alcohol mixed with some sort of water. They have some sort of ratios. They have secret elixirs that they use. I'm not a fan of using alcohol. I know the alcohol does help to remove oils and greases from cards, but I also am concerned that it may damage the card in some way. And I believe, at least with PSA, anything other than water used on your card is considered altering or cleaning the card and could result in, again, some sort of negative consequences, which you don't want. So if you take another poly bag and you use that to put on top of your card, so now I've put a poly bag on top and now I'm just touching the card with the poly bag. So it's sandwiched between two poly bags and it's on a hard acrylic surface so that when I push on the card itself, I can't damage the card. I'm not denting it. And then you just very lightly, you can take this swab and you can actually go over the card and just give it a nice gentle wipe like this, always going away from the center. So you go from the center off the card, never in this direction because you might catch an edge, a corner. Never want to do that. So you're always going outward like this. You're very gentle. We're not pushing too hard here. The intent is to just get a little bit of moisture on the card, and then we're going to come back and we're going to use the microfiber cloth Again, make sure there's nothing on the cloth. It's just a microfiber cloth. Now you're going to press a little bit harder, and you're going from the center outward. And this is going to take that moisture off of the card, and with it, hopefully, any fingerprints or things that might be on the surface of the card. And then we repeat that process by just going to the top of the card. And now we go in the other direction. And we're going to wipe the card again. Now the front of the card's done. The key here now is, of course, not to get any fingerprints on the card because you just finished doing the card. Might be hard-pressed to do this one on camera. I'm going to see what I can do to lift this up. But essentially now what you're going to do is use your poly bags, just get it to the edge. You can now grip the card between your two poly bags. I need another poly here to put down. Just 1 second. Put another poly bag down here, and we're just going to flip the card over. Again, being very, very careful not to damage any edges or corners. You always want to lay things as flat as possible. Okay, so just going to do the exact same process on the back of the card. Microfiber cloth. Be very careful not to catch an edge. Oh, sorry, banged the camera there. Then we'll do the bottom of the card. And as you can see, there's not a a pool of water showing up on this card. It's just a little tiny bit of moisture on the swab, and that's just to help with getting any of the fingerprints or things that might be on this card off the card. All right, so we cleaned the card. Now we got to get the card into its poly bag. So we have a poly bag here. If you're going to put a card in a poly bag, especially one that you're worried about dinging corners, always slit one side of the bag. So you can use a knife. You can use your finger. They also come pre-cut. So I'm not happy with that one. As you can see, there's a little bit of, didn't quite slit where I wanted it to, so I'm just going to throw that one away. They are, in fact, called penny sleeves, so it's okay if they're disposable if you need to. Just going to see if I can get that one a little bit close to the edge. Helps if it's a really sharp knife. Yeah, I feel much better about that one. Okay, so now we're going to lift the card up. And again, you can use gloves. If you have gloves and you can put them on, you can actually manipulate your card a little bit easier than sandwiched between two poly bags. Whatever works for you. Again, this is my method. You don't need to follow what I do. So I'm just going to push the card to the edge here. Okay, we've got the corners now exposed. And I can now slide my card into the poly bag. And then when we come to the other side here, because we've split the edge of the, oh, you know what? I got it slit on both sides. Once it's been slit, then you're not going to catch the corner. You can then just slide your card down inside. And that's that. You don't need to press hard on it. You don't want to do anything that's going to damage the edges of the card. So it's in our poly bag. And then if you're going to submit it to a grading company, you have to put it inside of one of these. So this one's by Ultra Pro. It's called a grading sleeve. This is a very flexible plastic. I know it seems very counterintuitive to put a card inside of something like this to now send off to somewhere because the potential for damage is definitely there. PSA and other grading companies will not accept your card if it's in a top loader or if it's in some sort of a one-touch or anything else. Penny sleeve and a grading sleeve is all they will use for that. So what you want to do, make sure that you have used your fingers to pry this thing wide open. Make sure that there's nothing sticking. And you're going to keep your fingers like that to pry it open. Hard to show on camera here. And you're going to put your card in, and you're going to slide it inside, and you're just touching the top edge of the card here to push it in. And you can open it up, usually the edges of the grading sleeve, and just push them a little bit. Get your card inside of there. Don't push it down too far. That's perfectly fine. It's now ready to send off to the grading company. So you would go to your PSA dealer, you go to wherever it is that you need to submit your card, and it's now ready. That's the process. So that's how we would submit our card. Now, why does grading matter? Let's flip back over to our computer screen. So we'll go back to our computer screen here, and I'm going to now bring up eBay as an example. So eBay is a very popular place for people to list their cards for sale, as well as people buy cards off of eBay. Probably one of the bigger sites. You can use Facebook Marketplace. You can use, I'm sure, lots of other sources as well. This one is the most popular. So I'm going to show you how to use this tool to determine what is a card worth. And that's why people would grade a card. They're grading a card hoping to get a 10, because a 10 significantly improves the value of the card over a 9, for example, or a raw card. A raw card is a card that has not yet been graded. So this Connor Bedard that we just prepped, that's a raw card. So what I did is here in the search bar, I put a Connor Bedard Young Guns PSA 9. Okay, so that's a graded 9 card. We saw a couple of those today. And I am going to search. And when I search, we're going to see a whole bunch of listings. So this is people selling their cards. This one's so far at $200. It has 28 bids, and there's 2 days left. This one's 152. This one's 255. And then we're going to start to see some that might say, buy it now. So you can buy this one for $350 plus $27 shipping. Keeping in mind that eBay charges you sales tax as well. So depending on where you are, you will get charged the sales tax for where you reside, where the card's being shipped to. Does that mean that that's how much the card's worth? Well, I know that my grandfather used to tell me that things are worth exactly what people are willing to pay for them. Let that sink in. Things are worth exactly what people are willing to pay for them. So I may not think that a Connor Bedard card of any kind is worth $10,000. But there are other people that would look at some Connor Bedard cards and say, I'd pay $10,000 for that. So to that individual, it is worth $10,000. To me, it is not worth $10,000. It's all a matter of perception. When you go to a card show or you're doing a deal with somebody, often you will hear the term comps or comparable, short for comparable, a comp. It's a term that's used in real estate. So real estate agents will say, well, here's the comparables or here's the comps. There's, these houses are over here in this neighborhood. They all have 3 bedrooms. Yours has 3 bedrooms. This one's, 1,800 square feet. This is roughly. So it's comparable, and that sold last sold for this price. The card market is very aligned with the real estate market in terms of how we value things. Kind of weird when you think about it. But the value system is the exact same. We use comparables. We cannot use what people list a card for. Anybody can list a card. This person chose to list this card at $440. To them, their card is worth $440, and if somebody buys it, they're going to feel good about the fact that they sold it for that price. That's what they wanted for it. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't get this card for a different price. So how do you determine that? Well, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so that it's a little bit larger on the screen. On the left-hand side here, you're going to see a bunch of checkboxes. And if you keep scrolling down, you can actually put in some parameters. So these are filters that we can choose. Well, we want to see graded cards because we want to see what a PSA 9 is worth, for example. So I'm going to hit yes. I want to see graded cards. Then I want to go down and look at, well, what company did the grading. So where is it here? Condition views, season. Usually you can choose the grading company. I don't see that here, which is strange. That's odd. Normally you can choose PSA as an example. I'm going to hit the see all filters down here. And then I'm just going to go over here to the left and make sure that I didn't miss that somewhere. Like usually it's there. Here it is, a professional grader. So I'm going to choose PSA, Professional Sports Authenticator. That's what I want to see. I'm going to hit apply. And then we have one more thing that we want to do, and that is click on the sold items. So we click the sold items, and now we're going to see all of the, hopefully, Connor Bedard Young Guns PSA 9 fitting this description. We're going to see a list of cards. So this PSA 9 sold September 30th, that's today, for $385 Canadian plus $12 shipping. This is not what we're looking for. It's not a rookie card. That's not the rookie card. Here's another one, $369, but free shipping. So, all right, when you look at the total cost to the person purchasing the card, this was $385 plus 12, so that's $397 plus tax, by the way, $397 plus tax. This one was $369, no shipping, plus tax though. This one says 0. This is a weird sort of thing. There was a best offer that would have been accepted in some capacity. This is a weird anomaly one. Here's one that was $295. Here's one that's $302, $369. So how do you figure out what you should be paying or what your card is worth? I mean, these are all over the place, but there's a range. There's a range. Typically, when you're looking at cards that have sold, you want to look at, say, the last 30 days, maybe longer if it's a vintage card, but you want to look, say, the last 30 days, and then you're going to take the average. And if they're all roughly around the same price, taking the average is a good way to do it. Now, if there's some outliers, and I would consider this to be an outlier, when we looked at this one for $295, that's really low compared to all of the other ones that we're seeing. So we might take that one out of the averaging, but if we're going to do that, we should also take out any of them that are on the really high side. So we've been seeing in and around this 370, 385. We go down here, there's 302, 369, 356. This one was a best offer, and there's a way to look that up. I'll maybe do a tutorial on that where you can see what the offer accepted was. This one's 301, 295, 277, 303. They're all hovering in that $300 to $350 range. So that's pretty much where the average is going to be. So you can add these all up if you want, divide by the number of cards. That's going to tell you that, okay, on average, this card is selling or has sold for this price in the last little while. There's another way that you can do that. If you have an eBay account, you can go to what's called the Sellers Hub. So if you Google eBay Sellers Hub, you can go there. And this is what it looks like. So this is the Sellers Hub. And over here, there's a button that says Research. And if you hit Research and then Product Research, it'll come to this screen. And once we're at this screen, we can now put in, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see a little bit better. We can put in some parameters. So here's a Connor Bedard Young Guns PSA 9. I have it listed at the last 90 days. Maybe you want to do the last 30 days. And I would say that's probably the better way to do it. So let's do that. Let's change it to last 30. Because this is a really common card. Its value is fluctuating pretty quickly. In the summertime, it tended to be a little bit lower. We're now on the cusp of starting the NHL season next week. As the season starts, if Bedard gets off to a hot start, the cards are going to change in value. If his start is really slow, maybe his card goes down. Maybe he gets injured. There's so many factors that can affect the value of a card. So let's do it on 30 days, and I'm going to hit Research. So now it's going to list all of the cards down here and what they sold for. And as we can see, there's some here that aren't Connor Bedard rookie cards, so we want to get rid of those. We also want to make sure that we've got some filters. So if we click on the More Filters, oh wait, not that one. There should be one here for... That's interesting. There should be something here for graded. All right, in the interest of time, basically what I'm going to do is that this is not a Connor Bedard rookie card. So we're just going to go here and we're going to say exclude listing. So it'll get rid of that one. This one's not one, exclude listing. And we can do this with the cards that we don't want to see in the valuation. So exclude that one. Hopefully there's not too many here in the last 30 days that are wrong. There's another one. Geez, this one's not even Connor Bedard. I saw one here. This is a Carey Price card. So we'll take that one out. This one's a package deal, so it had a Bedard card in it, but it had other cards too, so we're going to take that one out. That's a silver outburst, and you can see this is $1,400. If we left that in there, and we go back up here, we can see it's going to show that the average price sold is $373, and it's ranging from $264 to $1,409. This outlier, $1,409, is weird, so that should be your first hint that something is wrong. That's that silver outburst that we're seeing right here. So we're going to get rid of this silver outburst from our listings. And there we have it. So there are, I don't know how many are here, but there's a number of PSA 9 Connor Bedard rookie cards that have sold in the last 30 days on eBay. These are confirmed sales. And you can see the last date sold. So this is in order. I filtered it already by clicking last date sold, and it's showing us that information. And now when we look up here, we can actually see here's the average price. So we don't have to necessarily do all that math or computing. We can just see it's $323 Canadian. The average shipping is $12.21. So the total price would be $335-ish plus tax for a Connor Bedard PSA 9. All right, what's a PSA 10? Why are we looking to send our cards to be graded? We want to send them because we're hoping we're going to get a PSA 10. And that's because the value goes up significantly between a 9 and a 10 for most cards. So here we go. Here's the filters I was looking for earlier. I don't know why this was not showing up in my previous one, but we want to make sure it's a 10, and we want to make sure it's PSA. And then we're going to go down here. And just like before, we're going to get rid of any of the ones that are not. Oh, did I also do 30 days? Yeah, 30 days. We're going to exclude the ones that are not Connor Bedard PSA 10s. And then we'll take a look at it and we'll see the average value. If you remember, the last one was what? I'd say 325-ish for a 9. Okay, so we've had fewer 10s that have sold. But look at that difference. $750 plus 15, so we're at $766. $766 versus 300 and whatever I said it was before, 325-ish. More than double. That's why it's so important that if you're going to send your card off to be graded, you want to make sure that you have a good shot at getting a 10. If you're sending it in for a 9, it's probably not a good idea, because if we look at just the raw card, right? So now if we just do Connor Bedard Young Guns, we take the PSA out, we do a search, we get rid of the PSA over here on the left, so the filtered graded no. In fact, we're going to now select no. So under graded, we're going to hit no. And we'll make sure the sold button is still there. Yep, sold. And we're going to have to go through this a little bit because there's the canvas Young Gun, there's a clear cut. Here's one. So this is what we consider raw. This has not been graded. This one was $250. Okay, that seems like a really good bargain, considering a PSA 9 was $350, almost $100 more. The grading fee for most cards like this is going to be, well, at least in Canada, you're probably paying somewhere around $40 plus dollars. Now you have to look at the images and so on. So if we were to click on this, it'll say it's no longer listed, but you can take a look at the images. Do you see anything that's standing out? On eBay, you can't hold the physical card. So you also may want to message the seller and say, would you mind taking a closer video? So have them go very slowly over the edges, the surface, the corners, and send it to you. Or at the very least, snap some pictures of those edges and corners so that you can have a look at it up close and see if there's any obvious defects. What else we got? So we have, here's one, $390. More, it sold for more than the average PSA 9. Sometimes you can't figure that stuff out. Maybe the person that was buying this thoroughly examined the images and they feel pretty strongly that this card has a chance of becoming a PSA 10 if they submit it. And in that case, they would feel very comfortable paying $390 for it, because a PSA 10 is currently, as we just saw, averaging $750. So if they're investing $389 plus tax, of course, and and the fee to send it in to PSA or some other grading company, there's a pretty good return on investment there. But they have to be pretty confident that this is going to come back a 10 and not a 9. If it comes back a 9, they've essentially wasted I don't know, $40 or so because you can get a PSA 9 already graded for less than $389. Here's one 242, 271, 305, 242, 299, 255. As you can see, a raw card is a little bit less than a graded card. In general terms, there are plenty of examples where a PSA 9 and a raw card are pretty much around the same. And sometimes the raw card is more for the reasons I just talked about. If you have a raw card that looks like it will come back as a 10, so it's in great shape, that raw card will likely sell for more than the average price of a PSA 9 or a graded 9 card. Hopefully that makes sense. So all of that to say that grading is not for everybody. It's not an exact science. If you choose to send your cards off to be graded, make sure that you have the tools available to look at your cards up close and inspect them. Make sure that you give your card a rudimentary clean, just to make sure you don't have any surface oils or anything like that on the card. Be very careful when putting it into the penny sleeve and the grading sleeve. And then, of course, I like to actually take, if I flip back now to here, I actually like to take these grading sleeves and then I put a couple pieces of cardboard on both sides, and then I put some painter's tape on it so that I don't accidentally bend this card en route to getting it graded. When you get it to the store, they're going to take it out of the cardboard, of course, and they're going to take this, and now it's their responsibility. They're going to take this, they're going to put it with the rest of the cards to be graded and send it off to a PSA or whatever grading company you choose. And you hope that in transit it doesn't get damaged or anything like that. So far, my experience has been really good with PSA. I use the one in Halifax because I am in the Maritimes, and so I drive out to Halifax every so often just because I like to look at the local shops out there. They have a card show once a month that I like to attend if I'm in the area, and then I can drop cards off to be graded at the same time. So in your area, there may be a hobby shop that has PSA drop-off spot, or they may have somebody that collects cards. Sometimes it shows there'll be somebody that will collect PSA cards and submit them on your behalf. Again, be careful about who you're trusting to do that. If they're not an official PSA employee, they may just be taking the cards and dropping them off in Halifax, for example. I know there's a guy that would come to the local shows here in Moncton where I live. They would take cards and submit them to PSA for you for a fee. But now you're using a middleman, and if you don't trust that person, probably not a good idea, right? A high-end card, they could easily walk off with it. I will say in Moncton, I've never had that experience, never heard of anything like that. The person that does it has always been quite reliable. I did use him for a couple of submissions and had no issues. But, be aware that those things can happen. All right, so hopefully you learned a couple things today about what to look for in terms of grading from a what makes up a 9, what makes up a 10. Not an exact science, and buyer beware as well on raw cards. If you're at a show or anything and you're buying a card, if you don't have some sort of magnifying glass, especially if it's a higher end like a Bedard rookie, for example, you want to make sure that it's in decent shape. You want that raw card to at least be a 9, I would say, if you're going to pay the price for it. Now, if the card is, if as we saw, a lot of those raw cards were, say, $250 to $300. If you see a Connor Bedard rookie card and it's listed for $150, there's probably something wrong with the card. Ask the person. If they say, oh, no, it's perfect, I just, I want to get rid of it, take a look. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Ask if they have a magnifying glass if you don't have one, but try to carry one with you so you can look at things real quickly. And that way you can be sure that you're not getting a bum card. All right, if you are familiar with our channel, we do breaks every single Thursday night. What's a break? Well, essentially, you buy a spot into what's called a break, and a break is a series of boxes, hobby boxes, traditionally, at least with my breaks. There will be hobby boxes of cards that we would open live on camera. You would purchase a spot in the break, so there's 32 NHL teams. You're essentially purchasing one of those teams. We randomize the teams. you are assigned to a team. So let's say you bought one spot. We randomize the list of names with the list of teams, and let's say that you got San Jose Sharks. Whatever products that we're opening on that Thursday night, any of the insert or hit cards from the San Jose Sharks are yours to keep. So we mail them out to you, and they're yours. The base cards, which are just the usually 10-cent kind of cards, we don't mail those just because they're too heavy to mail. It ends up costing way too much to mail them, and then the break cost would go up. But any of the insert, like the valuable cards, any of the insert or hit cards, they get sent to you. We do have one coming up this Thursday, so just a few days from now, Thursday, October 2nd, and that is 5 boxes of the brand new artifacts. So that's the 25-26. This is the brand new rookie crop. This is where we're going to see Demidov, for example. So we have 5 boxes of that. We have 1 box of the 23-24 Ultimate, which is Bedard's rookie year. So that's where we get some really nice, high value, potential anyway, high value Bedard rookie cards in there. And giving away a Connor Bedard rookie card. So that will be available this Thursday. It is $55 for 1 spot, but if you buy 3 or more spots, the spots are now dropped down to $50 a spot. So hopefully I will see some of you there at the break. We also do live giveaways, so you don't have to be participating in the break, but if you're watching live on YouTube this coming Thursday, you can win prizes. You don't have to purchase a spot or be participating. But if you're the winner, we will send you whatever prize it is at no charge. And it's kind of a fun thing to do. We like to talk about hockey. We do some tips and tricks along the way. We talk about some of the trades, things that are going on while we're opening up the cards. So it's not just ripping cards as quick as we can and burning through them. We do like to make it a little bit of an experience. So if you're into breaks and you'd like to check us out, please do so. You can find us at maritimesportscards.com. And if you Google if you go to YouTube and search Maritime Sports Cards, you'll also find us there. Also on Facebook at Maritime Sports Cards as well. So with that, I will bid you adieu and hopefully, like I said, see you at an upcoming break.
Maritime sports, we breaking the heat. Sean on the mic, pulling grails from the street. Crosby, McDavid, Bedard on the rise. Great White North, where the legends collide. Packs get cracked, it's a heat wave storm. Young guns fire, rookie cards get born. Connor on the ice, Bedard in the zone. Crosby on the boards, man, the game's full grown. East Coast pride, where the ice runs deep. Maritime grind, where the great ones sleep. Pulling hits, stacking slabs, never losing the flame. Maritime sports, remember the name. Back to the breaks, adrenaline high, silver foils flashing, grails passing by. From Halifax rinks to the big league lights, we chase cardboard dreams on those Saturday nights. McDavid, Speed Bedard on the glide, Sid the Kid's legacy, coast to coast pride. Pull a 1-on-1 hit, crowd roars insane. Maritime sports, engrave the name. Whoa, crack packs, drop facts. Whoa, no fakes, all stacks. Whoa, from the Great White North, yeah, we run them tracks. Yeah. Packs get cracked, it's a heat wave storm. Young guns fire, rookie cards get born. Connor on the ice, Bedard in the zone. Crosby on the boards, man, the game's full grown. East Coast pride, where the ice runs deep. Maritime grind, where the great ones sleep. Pulling hits, stacking slabs, never losing the flame. Maritime sports, remember the name. Back to the breaks, adrenaline high. Silver foils flashing, grails passing by. From Halifax rinks to the big league lights, we chase cardboard dreams on those Saturday nights. McDavid, Speed Bedard on the glide. Sid the Kid's legacy, coast to coast pride. Pull a 1-on-1 hit, crowd roars insane. Maritime sports, engrave the name. Crack packs, drop facts, no fakes, all stacks. From the Great White North, yeah, we run them tracks. Crack packs, drop facts, no fakes, all stacks. From the Great White North, yeah, we run them tracks.